If you're tired of guessing how to get booked out, I've got something for you. My booked out blueprint starts with a private 45-minute interview where I learn your business, your goals, and what's actually holding you back. From that, I create a custom roadmap showing your best route to booked out. No fluff, just clarity. It's only $397, and if you move forward into Booked Out in 6, my 6-mission program, that $397 is fully credited. Check the show notes to get started. Welcome to the Tiny Marketing Podcast. I'm Sarah Noel Block, and this show is made for solo consultants who want to get booked out without burning out. If you've ever thought, I just want this to feel easier, you're not alone. Around here, we focus on simple, sustainable growth that actually fits into your life so growth feels doable instead of overwhelming. And so today we are talking about those first couple of hires that you have when you're a solo consultant and you're feeling that pain, the growing pains. It's really, really hard. So we're going to dig into how to hire great people, how to onboard them, and the systems and processes you need in order to make it all work. Sarah, thank you for joining me. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Of course. So my name is Sara Nay. I'm the CEO at a company called Duct Tape Marketing, and I've been with the company for 16 years now. Started as an intern, had various roles throughout the company, and about a year ago stepped into the CEO seat. Over those years, I've helped a lot of people with hiring. So we've obviously hired on our team, and I've led that initiative, but also we train and certify marketing consultants, fractional CMOs, and small agencies. And as part of that certification, we're teaching our system and frameworks, but I'm also helping people go from solopreneurs to their first hire to growing their team. So I have a lot of experience talking about hiring and onboarding.
I didn't tell you this on our onboarding call, but I remember when I was a one-person marketing department like 20 years ago, maybe, like 15, 20 years ago, Duct Tape Marketing blog. I read it constantly.
Amazing. I love to hear it. Yeah, we've been around for 30 years as a company. And so I hear those stories all the time. We've had our podcast for 20 years now. So been in this space for a while.
Yeah, it's crazy. You were like the only source for information when you were marketing with a small team and limited resources. So thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that we helped you 20 years ago. That's great.
Okay, so let's get into the hiring piece first. So let's picture actually one of my clients who's going through this right now. She works in finance. She's been hiring people, but it's just never working out. They don't have the right skill set, or just the onboarding feels messy. Like it's taking way too long to get them ready to take over responsibilities.
Yeah. And I will say, I think that person's not alone. I think everyone, when they start thinking about hiring for the first time, there's just a lot to learn. There's a lot to figure out. A lot of mistakes are often made, but hopefully this conversation, yes, we all have. I have too. But hopefully this conversation will help people make less mistakes moving forward. That's the goal ultimately. But that person's not alone. So I think the thing that's tricky with hiring is there's a lot of stuff that needs to go in before you're ready to hire that people often skip or don't think about. And so, for example, whenever we've hired over the years, like on our job descriptions, we always start with, here's our mission, here's our vision, here's our values. And so that's the first part of our job post before we'll then say, okay, and here's the role that we're hiring for, and here's the requirements. And so it's really important to understand those things deeply so you can hire people that are aligned with your values and what you're actually trying to accomplish as a business. And so for us, we're trying to make a massive impact in the small business space. Like that has always been what we focus on. And so when I'm hiring, I want to hire people that first and foremost are excited about that. Like they want to work with small businesses. They want to make a difference. They want to try as hard as possible to get them results. And so I think when you're thinking about hiring, you need to take a step back before you say, what are the roles that I maybe need? And take a step back and say, what's really important to me and where do I need people to be aligned on? So getting into like the values piece, for example, like marketing is changing and evolving so fast right now. And so whenever I'm hiring anyone on our team, regardless their position, one of their values needs to be that they're growth minded, they're eager to learn. They read books outside of work that are business focused focused. I need those types of people because it's changing so fast. But I've taken the time to identify those things that then it makes it easier to hire people that are going to be aligned and that are going to stay with us longer because they're excited about what we're trying to do. So that's really important. But then also, and that's all related like the job description and posting and getting clarity. But then our first interview is always a fit interview from a cultural standpoint. And so the whole first interview is focused on, does the mission resonate with them actually? Like how are they doing on these values? Are they aligned? Like, are they going to fit culturally as our team? And so that's always like the first interview. And then the second interview will actually get into their skill sets and experience. And so I think focusing on those things is really important before you can even get to the interview process with a candidate. And that's what often people kind of skip and overlook.
Yeah, that makes sense. So actually, can we take one step back from the job posting and look at who should a first hire be?
Yeah. So there's a number of exercises on delegation that I think are relevant. But for one, like if you're a solopreneur, oftentimes, and if you're a consultant, for example, like I work with a lot of marketing consultants. And so oftentimes I say, okay, what are you doing consistently that takes up a lot of time that you don't enjoy doing? Could you bring someone in to help you with that stuff? And so doing a time audit, this sounds really painful, but spending about a week just jotting down like every 15 minutes what you actually are doing, because I guarantee it will be different than if you just like sat down and wrote them out. And so doing a time audit for a week, writing down everything you're doing every 15-minute increments. And then at the end of the week, doing an audit of those things are, what are your highest payoff activities? What are things that drain you? What are things that you love doing? What are things that actually drive value to your business? And then holding on to those value things that you love doing that that add value to your business. And then looking at, okay, what's on this list that's like time consuming, that's repetitive, that does not bring me joy, and then making a list of those things will then help you more clearly define, okay, what roles do you need to bring in to be able to take some of that stuff off of your plate? But oftentimes, I will say, in the solopreneur role, if you're serving clients as a consultant, usually thinking about like an account manager or executive assistant type of role makes the most sense in the beginning, because a lot of times, as a consultant, you need to stay strategic, you need to stay high level, you need to stay advisor and not necessarily implementer on all of the things. And so if you can bring someone in that can schedule your meetings and that can keep content moving forward and that could communicate with your clients and keep track of just like all the people that are in your world, it allows you to stay higher level and provide more value to your clients.
Yeah. And then you have the actual time to grow your business and do your show up in your marketing, show up for sales and biz dev, which you wouldn't have if you're stuck in fulfillment all the time.
Yeah. And that is one of the challenges that I see with solopreneurs as they're just getting started is they don't want to hire because they don't have a ton of clients yet. And so they're like, I can just do it. But then all of a sudden they have 2-3 clients. And then all of a sudden their clients' businesses are more important than theirs.
Yeah.
And so their business takes the second seat completely. And then they stall in growth and they come up for air and they wonder why. And so I always encourage solopreneurs, like even if you're just getting started, hire sooner than you feel like you're maybe thinking about it or ready from a financial standpoint. But you can always hire by starting with someone very part-time, starting slowly, starting them hourly, and then they can grow into a larger position over time. And so that's the route that we've always taken at Duct Tape Marketing. We do have full-time employees, but we also work with a lot of contractors as well. And whenever I'm bringing on someone new, regardless if they're going to turn into a full-time employee or not, I start them at like 10-ish hours a week in the beginning, and I'm paying them hourly because I want to determine, does it make sense for them? Are they going to be a good fit? Like, am I ready to introduce them to more of our clients? Because you have to start slower, but then having the conversation with them from the very first interview is like, we're going to start at like 10 hours a week. We're going to get to know each other. We're going to build trust. There's opportunity to scale this up to even full time if that's of interest. So, asking the person, are you good with starting slower? Do you have ability if it goes well to really ramp up further? And I think if you think about hiring that way, it seems a lot less intimidating because you're not committing to a full-time person from the very beginning. You're starting small, you're building relationship, and then you can scale them up from there.
Yeah, I think that's the only mistake I did not make at the beginning of my business was when I got my very first client. I was still working corporate, but I hired a VA immediately. And I just took a percentage of what I was making from that one client and set that as the budget I knew I could afford that. It was that. And because I was able to onboard her slowly, like she didn't have like a ton of stuff right away.
Yeah.
Our relationship, and she was able to take on so much. She was able to take on so much more responsibility because she could ease into it.
Yeah.
Whereas I'll talk about the shitty thing that I did. Now she got a full-time job. I had to figure some stuff out. But at this point, I had 13 clients and it was a full-time job. I was no longer corporate and I was in a mad rush to hire people.
Yeah.
And at that point, I did not do it slowly. Onboarding was so rough. And I didn't work with any of those same relationships today because it was just like I was in such a difficult place that I wasn't able to onboard them appropriately or even like vet them appropriately.
Yeah. And it's such a better experience, the one with the VA that you shared, where you started slowly and you built over time for you and your clients and that freelancer as well. Because I've also made the same mistake years ago. I brought someone on as an account manager. I introduced them to like 6 clients right off the bat. They were completely overwhelmed. There was so much to learn so fast that they ended up not working out. And so we had to let them go. And so we had to let them go was a negative in that story, but also like I had to go back to all the clients and be like, okay, now you have a new account manager. Hopefully this person lasts longer than 2 months. So it's really important to just start slower in the beginning. And so, I know we were going to talk about onboarding as well. So now when I bring on new team members, we always start with like, first you're going to go through training. And then when you're ready, you're going to start shadowing on one client. And then you're going to start getting involved with that one client. And you're going to learn all of our systems and processes and ways of doing things and all of our tools and all of that with that one client. And then once you prove that, things are working out and we can trust you, we'll give you a second client. You'll get comfortable with that second client. We'll give you a third client. You'll get comfortable there until you get to the point where you're at capacity. And so I'm a big believer in, spending as much time as possible in your onboarding and training to then set them up for long-term success. And another thing that we do too that I've learned over the years is, initially when we were onboarding, we would say, okay, we'll have like your onboarding meeting, give you a bunch of stuff, and then we'll meet with you, several days later. And it just left people feeling really overwhelmed. And so now every single time we onboard someone, regardless of their position, we have daily meetings in the beginning where it's like, okay, here's your project management board that we set up because we always use monday.com is what we use with your tasks for day one. Here's exactly what you need to do for day one. Go do it. Ping me on Slack if you need me. We'll meet again tomorrow morning. And then the next day we say, okay, here's your tasks for day 2. Go do these exact things. Because if you give people too much information in the beginning, they'll just get stuck. So if you can meet with them daily and break it down to like, here's your 5 things to do versus 25 for the week, it's going to make them a lot less overwhelmed. And it's also going to make your life easier because I felt like in the beginning when I was giving people too much, then they were just constantly slacking me and asking me questions. And so it was actually taking more time than getting on the call with them for, 15, 20 minutes a day to make sure they had what they needed to see how they did on their previous tasks and to set them up for success.
That is really smart. And I just want to point out that it works a lot better that way when you're onboarding clients too.
Yes.
Like I have found that when I give them too much information up front, it's overwhelming. But if I give them micro tasks that they're working through, and just showing them just what they need to see at that moment in time, it's so much easier for them. And they're like, okay, task complete, task complete, task complete. And then I can move on to the next thing. So it works.
I think just in communication in general, like if you can make things as simple and straightforward as possible and not feel like this massive thing to start, then people will actually start. And so another example on that is that we've rolled out documenting our systems and processes within our business. We've done it over the years, but we rolled out a new system for doing it essentially. And so the girl on my team that mapped it out for everyone and communicated, put all of this work into how everyone needed to get started. And it just felt like when she communicated with everyone that it was this big hurdle for people to get started. And so no one actually got started. But then when we were able to take a look at and be like, where can we simplify this to make it like, hey, I just need to do this one thing and it's only going to take me a few minutes and then it will feel a lot easier after I do that. And so we simplified how we communicated and now people are making a lot more progress. And so you just need to, make things as straightforward as possible and not make it feel like I have to figure out this whole thing or people just won't take the time to get started.
Yeah. And I want to point out an episode I had a couple of weeks ago with Pamela King, depending on when people are listening to this. Yeah. But she talked about how you should start creating your Looms or your walkthrough videos as you're doing your tasks, whether you hired someone or not. So you have those available for your upcoming hires whenever you happen to hire them. And then you said you use Monday, so you could just attach the link to the Loom right in that Monday task. Like, this is how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And videos are incredible for training team and clients and communication. But we actually would take it one step further because I think when people are being trained on processes, watching a video once is absolutely wonderful. But then after they watch the video and they understand the process, then they just need a checklist to follow. And so transcribe the video, put it into create a checklist, and then create a document that has the process name, the video embedded, and then the action items below. Because then the second, third, fourth time they go back to do that process, they can just check the boxes to make sure that they hit all the steps versus having to like rewatch the video and make sure they didn't forget something.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. So like going back to the not overwhelming people, would you create a single doc with like different tabs depending on the task, or would you have a separate doc for each task?
A separate doc for each task, ultimately. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless it's like, it just kind of depends on what. So like, let's give an example. We're a marketing company. So let's say it's, creating a blog post for a client. Like that would be all documented on one document. But then if it's like optimization from an SEO standpoint, like that might be a separate document that are like related, but like it's two separate processes ultimately.
Okay. Anything else on onboarding before we move on to systems and processes?
The biggest thing is just don't overwhelm people. Start slower than you want to. Communicate with them as much as you can to set them up for success.
Hey there, amazing founders. Ready to take your business to the next level? Join our Gateway Offer Challenge and watch your sales soar. In this challenge, you'll get mini Gateway Offer trainings to perfect your offers. Learn how to structure your documentation so it sells for you. Create buzz around your offer and identify eager clients with our sales training. Plus, get exclusive outreach templates that take the guesswork out of prospecting. And because selling should be fun, we've gamified this challenge. Who can sell the most gateway offers? And let's not forget, you'll also learn how to effortlessly upsell to your signature offer. Ready to level up? Join the Gateway Offer Challenge today. Your business will thank you. Go to challenge.sarahnoelblock.com. That is CHALLENGE.SARAHNOELBLOCK.com. Yeah, I really do like you could, those morning meetings for that first week could just be like 15 minutes, but it sets them up to be able to understand like, these are the things that I need to get done by the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and another one too, I guess that relates to all of this is time tracking. So have them track their time from the very beginning. A lot of times people don't love time tracking if they're a freelancer, they're used to it. but getting them
Yeah.
to start from the very beginning, especially if you're incorporating it as client work. And so you're, figuring out your cost and profitability within client work. But we have people track their time 100% from day one. So there's not pushback when they're with us for a while and then we eventually ask them to. But it gives you really good insights as well, because you're able to look at how they're spending their time and where they're getting stuck. And
Yeah.
so there's another story in this, and why this was helpful is we onboarded a team member recently, and we use for a lot of work that we do, among other AI tools. And one of the things I was having him do was pull a deep research report. And when you pull a deep research report, it takes 10-ish minutes, depending on the context, to generate that report before it gets something back to you. And so he did that for a client. He got the report back, but then he didn't realize that he needed to turn off deep research mode. So every single time he was prompting, he was waiting 10-ish minutes for a response that was a full report. And so I wouldn't have uncovered that if he wasn't time tracking his time clearly, because I was able to meet with him and be like, why did this take you like 2 hours when it would have taken me 10, 15 minutes? And so we uncovered that he needed to turn off deep research mode. So that was a good learning opportunity for us, that you would, sometimes I forget about those things because it seems obvious because I'm in those platforms for, the time. And so for someone that's a little bit newer to it, you need to explain some stuff in more detail, obviously. But that was a good learning, that if he wasn't tracking his time and putting details as to what he was doing, I don't know how long that would have gone on for.
Do you use any specific apps for time tracking?
Yeah, well, we've used Harvest for a long time. It's just the one that we've used. I don't necessarily, there's better, cheaper options that are available. I'm actually exploring switching over to right now because it has more features. But, I don't think you need something over the top. It just depends on, what all you're trying to do. But what I like, because again, we serve clients, is I'm able to track in the time tracking tools our revenue from the client, and then also the hours that are spent from our team. And I'm able to see reports, because that's a challenge as well as a solopreneur. When you start bringing in team members, you'll see your profitability go down. And so you need to price your engagements to justify bringing on these team members. And so in our engagements, we have very specific profitability goals. And so then when I'm, every single month, I'm looking at where my team is. And anytime we have a new client, I'm like, okay, here's your budgeted hours as the fractional CMO and as the account manager on this account. If you're going to go over, please let me know, and let me know why you're going over. And then at the end of every month, we look at their hours and we say, okay, you were green, yellow, or red, depending on where you're at in relation to our profitability goals. Like, why were you in the red or yellow? How do we get this client back on track? Do we need to increase scope? Or was there just some weird one-off things that happened? And so it's, within client accounts, it's not enough to just track it. It's to set specific hour goals, and it's to communicate with your team on a regular basis, whether or not they're on track and how to get them back on track.
Yeah, that's really smart. I was time tracking everything that I did for this period of time because I was trying to figure out which one of my offers was the most profitable.
Yeah.
It's like, how much time am I spending on this thing? And then when I looked at it, I'm like, I'm spending the most time on this thing they don't even care about.
Yeah.
Cut.
Yeah. Yeah. Cut that off. And great insight. And then you also will find, maybe you're spending way too much time on something that's still valuable, but there's ways to then optimize that time by bringing in AI tools to help make things more efficiently. So if you're not time tracking, it's hard to make those decisions because you're making those decisions based on feelings.
Yeah.
Also, time tracking helps you then price engagements moving forward, because you'll say, okay, this similar client, similar needs, we're hitting our profitability goals, it's priced at this. So it just helps you make better pricing decisions as well.
Yeah, that's something that I was talking to someone about on LinkedIn yesterday.
Yeah.
How do you figure out your pricing? And that was exactly it. I was like, I literally timed it to figure out how much it needs to be. And then I was never questioning, like, am I overcharging or undercharging? I'm like, this is the amount it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's a big piece when people are just getting started. We work with a lot of people that have, left corporate, and this is their first time launching their own business. And confidence in pricing is sometimes a challenge for people when they're just getting started. And so they undercharge, and then they don't increase their prices, and then they get really busy again, but not hitting their revenue growth goals they'd hoped for. And so I'm always a big believer in, like, as you're just getting started, yes, you can charge less than you want to be at in the beginning in exchange for like case studies or testimonials, but increase the prices every single engagement till you get to the point where you really want to be. And I think that's important because your confidence will grow the more work you do with clients and the more stories you have to tell and the more results you're getting. But definitely challenge you to not just kind of set your pricing and stick there. It's an opportunity to continue to grow and evolve and charge more with the more value you bring over time.
Yeah, that is a great point. Like you can, and I would, because I'm seeing, like, I'm in this group with a ton of consultants, and the number one thing that I see people complain about is like, this is a legacy client.
Yeah.
They're at the beginning of my business and they're still paying, maybe say upfront, like, this is case study pricing and it's only valid for the first year or whatever.
Yep.
And then like you said, every client, you can increase your price just a little bit until you get to the point where you want to be.
Yeah.
And usually.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point on the retainer clients, we typically, for the marketing space, again, recommend charging or planning out a quarter of a time for marketing priorities. And so essentially you're saying, okay, here's your next 90 days that we're going to execute on together. About midway through that, we're going to start looking at your next 90 days. Then we're going to map out those 90 days so your marketing can continue to evolve. And so when you're doing that, you're then presenting them essentially a new plan for every 90 days at a time in a sprint. And so I don't believe you should like every 90 days come in with like a new price point, but it helps you have the conversation of like, this is what we're committing to for the first 90 days. We'll lay the foundation. We'll start getting you some results. Once we do that, we might bring in bigger projects to help increase your growth. And so you're setting the stage from the very beginning of like, we're not going to just do the same things forever because I don't think that does anyone a good service. We are going to help your marketing grow and evolve. And with that, the more success we get, our retainer might increase because we'll be bringing on more opportunity.
Yeah. And that's great, having that conversation up front so people aren't shocked. Because people are really afraid to raise their prices and lose those clients. But if you are straightforward with them from the very beginning, like, this is a deal because this.
Yes, exactly.
They're not going to be shocked when the price goes up.
Yeah.
Okay. So last piece are any systems or processes that we haven't already talked on because we weaved it into this conversation that we should be aware of when we're hiring and onboarding.
Yeah. Well, years ago, another mistake story, probably about 12 years ago now at Duct Tape Marketing, we were like, we're going to document every system and process. And so I led the charge and essentially was like, okay, every single person on the team needs to document one per week and they need to submit it to me by Friday and then I'll review it and I'll put it in Google Drive and then no one ever looked at them again.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have probably. So, more recently, we now look at our systems and processes as we map out what we call like our overall engines or flows. And so one of our main packages, for example, is something called Strategy First. It's a 30 to 45 day package where we start with clients and we map out a strategy. So we essentially mapped out what are all the steps in first that we want every single client to experience every single time. So it starts with, completed payment and signed agreement. And then they fill out an intake form. And then we do a discovery call. And then we, do these research elements. And so we basically mapped out all of the steps. And then we looked at it and we said, okay, out of these steps, which need systems and processes documented because a human's going to do them and there's multiple steps in them and we don't want any mistakes. And again, we want to ensure a consistent experience across the board. And then those are the systems and processes that we documented. So it's not about going through like, let's document everything in your business. It's what are the reoccurring things that you're doing on a consistent basis that are really important to you, your business, your clients, and it's documenting those.
Yeah. I love that because I've done the same thing. Like, let's document everything.
Yeah.
And then like something dies off. I actually don't like doing that anymore, but I wasted all that time documenting it, or the process changed so drastically because maybe technology changed.
Yes.
That it's worthless 6 months later. Those big things that you're doing, like for me, like for example, documenting that process would make a lot more sense because I'm doing it with pretty much every client.
Yeah. And right now, if it's not documented, it lives in your head. So bringing on someone and training them is really challenging. But if you are starting to document it now and you get it all mapped out and like the whole flow with the individual steps and systems below it, like now, next time you bring on someone, like they can shadow you along in doing it with the client, but they also can follow through all the steps in the process to learn. And then when they do their first one on their own, they then can follow that process again to make sure that they're delivering the same results as you hopefully would for clients as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Thank you so much for everything that we've talked about today. How can people work with you and find you online?
So Duct Tape Marketing is our company. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. So again, my name is Sara Nay, and I would love to connect with you.
I'm going to connect with you right after this.
Let's do it.
All right. I will talk to you later.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks. If this episode made things feel a little more doable, I'd love to help you take the next step with the Booked Out Blueprint. It's a practical, low-pressure session to clarify your offers, your marketing, and what actually moves the needle. You can book yours through the link in the show notes. You don't have to figure it out alone. Hey there, fellow founders. Are you looking to unlock the secrets behind rapid business growth? Join my vibrant meetup group where we dive into masterclasses on game-changing strategies every single month. We've tackled topics like building a lean marketing engine, crafting killer lead magnets, and leveraging gateway offers to sell high-ticket offers. And trust me, you don't want to miss out on the next one. Come share your experiences, learn from the best, and let's grow together. Sign up and be part of the next masterclass by going to events.sarahnoelblock.com. That's events.sarahnoelblock.com.